A proper definition for cultural shock has not been produced yet. However, a consensus has been reached about what it represents and what its characteristics are. The cultural shock is an experience. While it is caused by something, and that is interaction with a totally different culture to which the person needs to adapt, we still cannot recall it as an effect, since not everybody gets to experience it. Therefore, it's been agreed that cultural shock is an experience. First of all, it is something personal, related to every single person. Secondly, due to its fluctuating nature, it depends on the parameters or intensity of the change causing it. It may be obvious that the smaller the difference is, the smaller chances that the shock will occur at all. And in reverse, the bigger the difference is, the more chances it will occur, but still it does not guarantee the same kind of response. Since a lot of variables are involved, cultural shock affects different people at different levels, if at all. The less familiar a context is, the more uncomfortable it is. And by context, we mean everything from environment to people. Recalling that mentorship implies support in preparing the volunteer even before arriving in the hosting community, we may imagine that cultural shock might be prevented by preparation. Still, some say that cultural shock cannot be prevented entirely by preparation. Having some background knowledge is beneficial in reducing its impact, but in turn, having stereotypical information about the culture may cause greater difficulty in adaptation than having no information at all. In theory, cultural shock usually consists of 5 major stages: the euphoria, the shock, the initial adjustment, mental isolation, and acceptance and integration. At first, the volunteer is very enthusiastic about the entire new environment, is fascinated by novelty. After a while, when tiredness occurs, this tends to fade and the shock appears. The mentee is now able to recognize the real changes. As the mentee recovers some energy, he starts feeling a little better and the initial adjustment settles in. The next steps require taking time to rest and slowly analyzing and thinking. Since a certain amount of time has already passed, a mentee might also feel homesick. Finally, he finds the coping mechanisms needed in order to move on, and integration shows its face. How can the mentor help in this process? Of course, by keeping the mentee informed about what might happen, why it happens, and that it will pass as soon as they manage to gather some tools to cope with the situation. Another option is for the mentor to manage the content of what the mentee is sharing with others in terms of dissatisfactions, mostly by voicing their inner feelings. Furthermore, explaining what the new culture and environment is expecting from him and suggesting positive thoughts might just be the right driving force in this context.